Hi, I'm Molly Barnes. I guess you're wondering what all of that has to do with art. My guest today is Wayne Coe, who's made an amazing change in his life. Like a lot of us, mid-career, he's gone from being in the film business, being a film animator doing storyboards, to becoming a really fine painter. In the last 2 years, he's had 2 major shows, and Peter Frank gave him an award recently in a juried show. You'll see all this after you meet Wayne. Welcome, Wayne.
Hi, Molly.
How did it all come about, the change from being in the film business to visual arts?
Well, I have to give some credit to Mark Costabay. He encouraged me to try out painting. I've always painted, but I really haven't tried that much gallery painting.
When I saw your show, I was amazed that we were actually given tickets to get in. This was a show on La Cienega in Los Angeles, and then we were actually given popcorn. So you tried to bridge the gap, I guess, between visual and fine art.
And also talk about a subject that really interested me, which is 9/11.
Yeah.
And themes in 9/11 that have resonance to me, mythological themes. To me, it's a Trojan horse story.
Tell us, what is the Trojan horse story?
That the enemy got into a gift and rolled it into a city and attacked from within. And it seems like that's the story of 9/11.
It's funny, nobody's really made that symbolism, made the gap.
I like Euripides, I like Greek plays, I like the social unrest, and I like the familial battling, and I like the struggle to be honest about what human behavior really is, which unfortunately sometimes is rather bestial and warlike. And I think a lot of those elements come out from both sides, the Americans and we'll say Al-Qaeda, in the 9/11 event.
Maybe we could see some pictures of the event actually itself. Your show was amazing because it encompassed so many areas of what you were doing. You did storyboards, which I think we'll see today. You did pictures of war heroes. You did pictures of heroes. The most shocking one, and the one that Peter gave you an award for, was a man committing suicide off of a tall building, I guess at Hollywood and Vine. And the film cameras are being set up in order to get a perfect view of the event as it happens.
It's a painting about the shooting of a 9/11 epic film, and the whole show is based on the idea that this film's already been made. Not that 9/11 was a fiction, but that the kind of, at least for me, horrifying way Americans deal with death is to not deal with it, to commodify it, to hide it, to avoid both birth, the seminal moment in our lives, and also death, which is the end chapter. Just look at America. It's so different than when the kids were killed in Iraq and Italy. They declared a national holiday. All the public leaders got together in the cathedral. They put it on all the channels. It was this big event, and that would tie people together. It creates a unifying mythology. But in America, it's silenced. And so the process for this show developed about reading firsthand accounts, which, at least in my mind, was as close as I could get, and then looking at things that the media has no coverage of.
And do you feel the media really does control us?
Yes, but I don't necessarily think it's manipulative. I think there is just a complete misunderstanding of what a film shot is and how it communicates. That a film shot, communicates one angle on an event when there's this entire world that's not covered. And you can see this over and over, the misperception of, we have a shot, it means something, it's news.
Here is your actual opening, and behind us are the heroes. George Clooney, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Who is the middle one? Oh yeah, Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson. So we have our Godhead.
And there's my favorite.
It's Jumper Stunt Shoot. And there we have real American heroes, actors.
What is that?
That's a script by James Cameron, done in non-Xeroxable red, which is the way the studios produce scripts that they want to keep ultra secret, so you can't copy them.
Wow. Go on.
So I've worked, you have to preface it, I've worked in the entertainment industry for 20 years.
What's the main difference between working in the entertainment business and being a fine artist, a visual artist? in by 9, out by 4, you're being paid by somebody else. You can't challenge your own brain to find out what's individually your own thinking?
Well, when you paint what you're interested in, whatever it is that you care about will come out.
Do you feel that art can actually change people politically?
Yes.
Robbie
Look at the
Canal.
media. That's art.
The
changing people every day.
Robbie Canal, who is a billboard artist who goes around the country at night pasting up these anti-Republican sentiments, and your work reminds me very much of his. He believes that he can actually make a difference, and not using a gallery system, just going out on the streets amongst the people. People like Leon Golub, Bosch in earlier days, actually felt that they could make a difference. What do you think?
I think Bosch was painting. He was painting about, you know, maybe the future both before life and after death. So he was painting about spiritual issues, but dark spiritual issues. And I think if you went to the show, it was both. I got a lot of comment. A lot of people were saying it was funny, you know, in a very subversive way.
How weird! What would they say?
Well, I had 2 shows. In the first show, some of these paintings were shown without film captions, without the context of film production, and the result was it created enormous fear and discomfort because people wanted a context. You know what? I'm looking at the fuselage cutting through the building from the inside. Why? You know, what does this mean? But it was a very powerful image, and people wanted to see it. But at the same time, it's also from the point of view of the victim. So there's this kind of sense of like shame. It's almost pornographic. It teases and excites, but it also makes people uncomfortable.
Let's get into a specific. What about this one?
This is called Jumper Stunt Shoot, and I would say it's my most objectified version of the film because it's a single image that tells the whole story of 9/11 as a media event, not as a real event.
Okay, and what is this?
This was a point of view from the pilot of the second plane, who I thought might have a sense of victory because he sees the smoking building off in the distance. There's also, you know, we were told they were cowards, but to fly a plane into a building doesn't exactly sound cowardly. It may be despicable, but not cowardly. This is fuselage. I sent postcards to New York, and almost everyone who got them put them in a public place. It was very interesting, on their office desks, on their refrigerators. So far from being horrified or offended, most people found something in it to cling to. This is a person in a seat flying through the building, because I read about accounts of passengers of the plane who were found in their seats lying at the bottom of the building. So using the exploitation art angle, that would be the image. I ended up transforming it into the pilot of the plane having come through the building.
What is this?
This is called Engine, which I had omitted.
Yeah.
So you had this terrifying event, but it's been omitted from the film. It's been edited out. Because the engine was also found on the other side of the building intact. This is kind of a God's eye view. I figured there's a jumper in the middle who you can hardly see, but it kind of showed the building collapsing, the jumper jumping, the people trapped.
Is this the same one?
Yeah, the Gotterdammerung.
That is
image.
a beautiful one.
I paint gouache, and a lot of these are small.
Now tell me about these 3. How big were those?
These are about 3 feet by 5 feet.
These are the ones that remind me of Robbie Canal and the way you depict human beings.
They're dimensional. They stick out from the wall. And interestingly, like a plumber came by and saw the one of Schwarzenegger, and he said, is Arnold doing another movie? And a lot of film people came in and took it as real. So if I had irony in mind, it was missed by TV producers, film producers, and also by a lot of the general public who go to films, because they look at it and they get what you get when you look at Ladder 49, which is also guys in dusty helmets.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same image. And it reads subtextually as, you know, our heroes, the guy who went in, the people who suffered for us and survived.
being an art dealer, everybody paints my portrait, and it's a great honor, but also I have a house full of portraits. I wonder if Arnold Schwarzenegger would be interested in that piece, or have you approached him about it?
You know, I haven't. People said, oh, you should send cards, you should try to get his interest.
Be fun to do cards. The word lenticular you use in your work, it refers to a piece of art that changes as you walk around it. How is that created? You gave me a piece to look at recently, and it was the airport, and then as you walked around it, you could see a plane coming crashing right into the window of the airport.
Lenticular is a technique where they take two photographs and they anamorphize them, they squeeze them, and they cut them up into strips. So these strips alternate.
Oh.
And the lens that sits on top of this photograph separates out one image from the other. So when you look at it from one angle, you see one image, and then as you move, it transforms into the other image. Lots of people have seen them in movie theaters. You see them on encounters in stores. They're usually used to sell something rapidly that otherwise you might pay no attention to.
A lot of artists are beginning to use that technique in painting.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's wonderful what you've done. Tell me about some of the other images that you've used in your show.
I had an image which I wasn't sure I was going to put up,
Yeah.
which was a fireman with a woman below at the base of the trade centers before the buildings fell. Because when I was reading the first-hand accounts, they talked about this Boschian landscape of fragments of people and people talking to fragments of people that if Saturday Night Live did it, you could almost laugh, but it's so surreal. And so I tried to depict one of the more graphic ones. It was the only one where I went ahead and tried. And it was hard to paint. I painted it initially with myself as a fireman and the fragment of the woman as my mom, because you know we watch our mom get older and she's dying and we can't do anything. So I felt,
Is your mother alive?
Yes, but she's getting older and she's getting white-haired and feeble, and I love her, but I can't change that.
I guess that's one of the cruel jokes of life. It's the third act is tough.
But it's just as interesting as the first.
Okay,
you know?
Tell me how you got started. What was your background? You grew up where?
I grew up in Whittier, California.
The Orange Curtain.
Yes, but Orange County was, in my memory, was beautiful. And
What did your dad do?
My dad was a mathematician. He worked on early punch card computers.
Were you an only child?
No, I was one of four. I was the second child.
And then you moved to Oklahoma?
I moved to Oklahoma, but I was already taking art classes at the LA County Museum before I left.
When did you realize, do you remember the minute or the time, the specific time when you realized you wanted to be an artist?
I always knew.
Always,
There was never any separation. I always drew obsessively and well and loved it. And from almost as early as I can remember, I got recognition, and my parents were extremely supportive. So it wasn't like I had to fight or struggle to know what I was going to do.
Do you think kids that have that kind of approval from their parents have an easier time, or do you think it's that fighting against parental authority that makes it better?
I don't know. I only know one perspective on that, and that was supportive parents.
It's wonderful.
You know, I can't say they were educated in art because my mom had a bachelor's in art, but she didn't tell me anything. And later I said, well, why didn't you teach me and tell me stuff? You took me to classes, but you did. And she said, oh, your dad didn't like what I did, and so he told me not